dictionary defines an entrepreneur as a person who organizes and manages any enterprise, especially a business, usually with considerable initiative and risk. Its origin dates back to that of French, simply meaning one who undertakes a task. To me, entrepreneurs are individuals seeking to change the world for the better, and have sparked up many of our modern business tycoons such as Microsoft with Bill Gates and Paul Allen, Apple with Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, and even Google with founders like Larry Page and Sergey Brin, and many, many other businesses. Entrepreneurship in the US alone has risen throughout the years. It was only last year in 2012 that we saw an up percent from 12.3% to 13%, leading the roles in entrepreneurship. Though entrepreneurship ranges from major Fortune 500 companies to small home businesses, down to lemonade stands on the corner of your neighborhood. When people ask what I do for a living, well, the short answer is I make content on the web. Diving deeper into it, I explain that I make media, be it text, video, or audio, content on the topic of technology. Technology news, product reviews, and tutorials in an effort to help those around the world with technology. Nowadays, my business isn't really just one simple thing. I make all different sorts of things for all different sorts of people on all different sorts of platforms. It was never really a set career growing up. It was more something that started as a hobby and turned into that of a profession. Most ideas or businesses are usually conceived that way, scratching an itch, and then you realize, hey, there's tons of other people out there who could use this. Maybe it's a service or an actual product, but it's always been about doing simply what I love. As cliche as that sounds, we live in a society where people work to get by, jobs they never planned on getting, or even majored in for that matter. Entrepreneurship and being self-employed to me has always been about doing the things that I love and enjoyed first and foremost before the money. The money kind of just came with it. It's flipping a passion into a profit, if you will. I couldn't ask for anything better. Now, I'm no big Fortune 500 company, nor am I some kid who developed an idea that was worth $1 million. I'm just someone who is able to take my hobby and make a living off of it. My name is Adrian Cauguiran, and I'm an entrepreneur. In this, I aim to tackle how I took my passion and turned it into a profit. Moreover, explain what entrepreneurship means to me, taking a look at my day-to-day activities, and pass along some advice to aspiring entrepreneurs. I think getting started at anything, whether it's going to be a business centered around a service or a product, there's really multiple ways to tackle it as an entrepreneur. I mean, there's the path you can go, obviously, of just being self-made and bootstrapping it yourself, providing all the funds to do whatever it is you need to get done. Of course, if you have an idea that you think needs more funding, you can go to investors. You can go to VCs, venture capitalists, angel investors, all of these guys out there who are willing to invest money if you have a really solid idea. And I think that's the thing about entrepreneurship, getting started. If you have a great idea, there are people out there who are willing to fund it. And as simple as it sounds, just asking. I remember watching a Steve Jobs interview where he talked about that's one of the best things you can do. You can go out and reach out to people who may be interested in your idea. And, maybe at first nobody finds it that, finds interest in it. Maybe nobody will fund it. But, of course, there's tons of different ways to do it. Starting out reviewing products for myself on YouTube, getting laptops and stuff like that. It was as simple as reaching out to companies, reaching out to the PR, and telling them, this is what I have, this is my audience, and if you'd be willing to send over products, I'd be willing to review it. And again, at the end of the day, the worst thing that can happen is they say no. The worst thing that can happen if you contact somebody with your idea is that they're not interested in your idea, they're not interested in your product, they're not interested in funding. And, you get up and you try again. So I got my start on this site called YouTube.
Hey, this is Laker Coleman, or some of you is Kid Guru. It's my first video using the new Cam Studio 2.5.
The story actually goes, I used to be an avid World of Warcraft player back in the day, and my computer broke.
and just wouldn't power on. So I set out to find what was going on so I can get my PC back up and running and play my games. Turns out, after research, my power supply was shot. I was able to learn how to get a new one and replace it, but this really sparked my interest because I never really thought about the hardware that made everything run in the computer. So I learned more and more, and eventually, I realized that there's tons of other people out there who probably have these issues or probably just don't have the know-how on what's going on. So what I did is I Googled the top 20 computer, common problems, and I worked off of that. I started on a site called YouTube. I learned how to record screen captures to show what I was doing on my screen, and I made these tutorials and uploaded them to YouTube. Little did I know I'd gain a following, and one day I was contacted by a PR representative at Intel asking me to review one of the latest solid-state drives, hard drive technologies at the time, and I was only about 12 years old at the time, just about 6th grade, and I had no idea how to conduct professional reviews, but I decided to give it a shot anyway. From there, I registered my first website, adrianstech.com, to be kind of home to my tutorials, and a member of my community, actually by the name of Josh Oakes, back then his username was Wee493, helped me code and maintain my website. Just a guy who enjoyed my content and decided to help me out for free, and he never asked for any money or anything like that, but it turns out to this day we still work together, and he's actually helped me co-found the current company I'm working at now. So my content from there kind of spiraled. I gained YouTube partnership, became the second most subscribed in Japan in science and technology at one point, and had over nearly 1,000 videos uploaded to YouTube, and was covering things from news to reviews and tutorials, all on technology. I ended up moving on to a new business after that. I sold some rights to some of my videos on my main channel and met up with some other awesome YouTubers to start something called Digital Dojos, a tech content network, which I still continue to run today. Along the way, I started other projects that failed. However, those failures really brought me to where I am today. Now I'm self-employed. My business has diverted its way from YouTube mainly, but it's made its way into more different stuff like client services. Nearly 6 years from that first video, I'm here, working from home. My own boss. In the morning, especially when I wake up early like this, my morning routine is kind of always, it has a sort of routine to it, but usually my days are always different. So typically, especially when I wake up early, I like to work in the dark, as you can tell. I like to start off the day just by going through what my to-do list is, and every day is really different. I mean, obviously I start off by checking everything, so I go through my to-do list, I go through what I have to do, what needs to be done in terms of client work, etc. I check my email almost every morning just to see what I've missed throughout the night. Especially working over here in Japan, there's a much bigger time difference, so I need to kind of get on par of what everything I've missed and all that stuff. So business really does kind of change in the morning. I have to, for Digital Dojos, I keep up to date with all the latest tech stuff, so I'll check all my social networks. I will go through and I'll check YouTube. I'll check, what else has, been released. I'll also go in and I'll check, my news sites, all of that, anything, that I need to keep up to date with. I get up to date with all the new stuff that's happening in technology, what the big stories are, all of that good stuff. And if anything catches my eye, I'll note it down that I need to write it later. That's for Digital Dojos. On top of that, my other business, screencap.com, which is really where more of my work has been at lately, that's client services. So more not that is recently just getting clients. I have clients, and basically what we do at screencap.com is we provide high quality iOS application reviews for developers, people to post on their app review blogs, all that stuff. So we make the content, and they essentially just buy it and they brand it. So they buy rights to the content. So for example, we'll have a client come to us and say, hey, we need 100 videos of, we need these 100 apps reviewed, and they'll pay us per, the bundle, and we will go out and we will, go out and get those app reviews done. So sometimes that's me doing them, sometimes that's me delegating them to my partner Josh to get those. So in the morning, it's really about just kind of sorting out everything, what needs to be done, and according to what is on the agenda for the day. It really is different every day. Sometimes you'll wake up and you got videos to shoot. Sometimes I have to talk to PR. Sometimes I have to talk to people on Skype. It really is a multitude of things. Now, that's a good question. What does it mean to be an entrepreneur? I think to me, being an entrepreneur means taking an idea and bringing it to action. In a simple sense, you need to be willing to take a risk and build a business around a product or service. And being an entrepreneur can mean a ton of different things. It can mean solving a problem. It can mean assuming a leadership role. It can mean innovating in a market. It doesn't exactly mean being rich and wealthy and being a CEO of your business. More or not it could be being self-made, or developing a team that creates something meaningful, and something brand new to the world. You need to be willing to take a risk and really see things differently, and be passionate about the work you do. That's what being an entrepreneur really, in my opinion, means. Qualities that make up an entrepreneur to me, they're very set things, I think, that you need as an entrepreneur. One, first and foremost, that of passion. You need to be passionate. I know it's something I reiterate so many times over, but it really is true. If you're not passionate about the product or whatever it is you're making, then why are your customers going to be passionate about it? Why are they going to want to buy it? Why are they going to want to use it if you aren't passionate about it? And furthermore, as again referencing Jobs, he said that most sane people who try these things, who try to create a business or try to create a product, those people who aren't passionate, most sane everyday people will just quit. They'll move on. They will quit when the going gets tough, if it gets too hard, because obviously starting a business is no easy task. It's very taxing mentally and physically, and the people who are passionate tend to stick through. You tend to see that in most success stories. Hardworking. I mean, that again goes without saying, but you need to be willing to be hardworking, to dedicate the hours, to dedicate the time to it all. And next up, most importantly, this is something that a lot of people, and aspiring ones, I think, also aspiring entrepreneurs don't realize, but you need to be prepared to fail. As an entrepreneur, your success rate, your rate that you are going to succeed and become one of these big companies is very, very, very unlikely nowadays. You have to have a really good idea. You have to have a really good team. You have to execute it really well. And there's no shortage of great ideas out there. Of course, technology and everything is evolving, so there's so many great ideas out there. But you need to be prepared to fail at the same time, because I think failure ultimately will lead to success. You need to be focused. You need to be focused on what it is you want to do. You need to set what it is you want to do and focus on that. For some people, your goals may be making a six-figure salary. It may be making a certain profit margin. It may mean releasing a product at a certain time, but you need to have focus. And lastly, you need to be ambitious and competitive. As an entrepreneur, you realize that there's competition out there. You're competing in a market with tons of other people who are even smart, just as smart as you are, or even smarter, and you need to be willing to, compete. You need to be willing to build, keep on improving upon your whatever it is. And never settling. You have to have that ambition to really understand what it is you want, your idea, how you want to bring it to action, and what it's going to do, and how it's going to evolve, and all of that jazz, how you're going to make it better. Those are just some of the key qualities to me that I think exist in most entrepreneurs. So after I sit around, I have lunch, usually my mid-afternoon. I usually get working on videos. I usually go through what I need to do, and around this time, it's usually recording stuff, client work, stuff like that. So we're going to go ahead and just jump into me actually shooting a video that I have to get done for a client. And you're going to see how that goes, kind of just the general process. And really, it's just me sitting at the desk here behind the mic, and getting stuff done. and today we're going to be taking a look at IFTTT, and it's IFT, which stands for if this, then that. And this is a free app that recently came to the iPhone that essentially is a automation application for the iPhone. So yeah, that's the typical workflow. I mean, if it's client services, usually, as you saw here, I was just doing an app review for a client there. I usually just pop my iPhone here. I use an app called Air Server to sling the screen from here to my Mac. My iMac is my main work machine here. I use it to do everything as far as rendering and video production. So for client work, it's typically that. I use ScreenFlow to capture it. I use my Blue Yeti microphone here to do all of my recordings. That's just the general workflow with client work. I usually have scripts or whatever on my dual monitor here, any information I need for the application. As far as other videos go, it really differs. So sometimes I'm just doing YouTube videos, and that's more laid back, and just not so much scripted and all of that. But yeah, that's just the common workflow. And I record my screen. If it's vlogs, I'm obviously using my T4i here. Or other videos, I'll be using my T4i. With my shotgun mic on top there. So that's just the basic workflow, and then I drop it all in, I edit it down, throw whatever I need to throw on in it, and then I render it out and submit what I need to submit to the respective networks. Did I always want to be, run my own company or be an entrepreneur? And honestly, the answer is no. It's something that really just happened. However, from an early age, I really wanted to do something I was passionate about. It never settled with me being younger. Why would you do something that, you're not happy doing for a living? I had the whole ideal view, that when you grow up, that most kids do. You go to a good high school and you get good grades, and you get good grades so you can go to a good college, and you get, go to a good college so you can get a good job afterwards, and you get a good job so you can, sustain yourself and maybe settle down with a family. But life is really, that's just one narrow view of it. There's so much more to it. And I realized that I didn't need to go through that route to be successful in life. To be honest, I hated school. I hated high school specifically. I felt like I was learning more on my own and other methods than I would at school. Not that I was being held back by faculty or anything. It just, in today's technology, it's rapidly advancing, and knowledge is literally at our fingertips, and we tend to take that for granted. There's so much access to information, and early on I just wanted to make my own money in life. I wanted to save up and be self-made and self-sustaining. I didn't want my parents to worry about me going to college and having to fund that. I didn't want, I just had this real passion early on for the finer things in life. And I know that sounds materialistic, and materials don't make up a person by any means. Money doesn't make up a person by any means. But I felt if I worked for it, and I felt like, why not? If you have the money and you can afford it, why not get these nice things in life? No one really needs anything in life but food, shelter, and clothes. So in that right, anything you buy, whether it's a cheap thing or an expensive thing, whether it's a cheap shirt or an expensive shirt, to me, it's not a necessity. As long as you have, a simple shirt, a simple house, some sort of shelter and food, then you're fine. So anything you buy from that point is really a want, in my opinion. So if I wanted the nicer things in life, I started working for it. I started making my own money, and to a point where, eventually I was able to buy the things I wanted. Before I even graduated high school, I bought a Rolex. I drove a Mercedes, and all these other things before, again, I was even 18. And it took me growing up and just time in general to learn, most importantly, that success, it's what you do with it that really matters. Above all, above the money, above the nice things, I wanted to use technology to make an impact on the world. It could be a video I make that helps some kid with with something an everyday problem that he had, or some service I provided. I wanted to make something that affected the world. You see, I'm in a business that's rapidly evolving, and that's technology. If you look at artists like Michelangelo and Da Vinci and all these other people, they make these things that are lasting throughout history. The Sistine Chapel and all these other things are things that are arts that will forever be in history. While content I make isn't that relevant for too long. Maybe a couple of years, give it a couple months, that product's obsolete, there's something better, there's something bigger. But to create something that's lasting, that's what I live for. It takes a lot of sacrifice, above all, and I think it's something people don't normally see. I know, especially in me, running a business is obviously no easy task. Stuff as simple as producing YouTube videos, for example, takes a ton of time. I think people see a 6 minute video and they equate that it takes 6 minutes to get that done. And for the most part, maybe sometimes it does, but maybe I should say in some cases it does. But for the most part, what they don't see is, I need to put these paper, I need to put these ideas on paper sometimes. I need to conceive, before I shoot a video. I need to do my research. Sometimes that takes anywhere from minutes to hours. And then that's the actual shooting process. Sometimes you mess up. It's not always one clean take. And then you have to edit it, and then you have to render it, and that takes time to do that. And then you have to go out there and just upload it. And at the time, YouTube is still a hobby to me, but there was, I still earn revenue from it. So sometimes you have to look at it from the business angle. If this video is, for other people, will this video be useful to people? Will it generate hits? All of that stuff. Those are factors you tend to take into consideration. And, I work from home, and while that's a luxury and it's an amazing opportunity for me, it also comes with tons of issues. I plan to move into an office in the future once I get a more centralized business idea and once I head stateside. But, working from home to me promotes laziness at the same time. I wear a suit and tie, even though I work from home. I'm my own boss. I have no dress code. But to me, it represents that I'm here to get stuff done. I take this work very seriously in that, I'm here to get things done. I need to work. It's like me being in an office in a building. This is, just because I work from home, it makes it no different. I could wake up and I can stay in my PJs all day, and that promotes, for me, it's a little bit easier to lounge around. And yeah, I have my off days, but for the most part, I'd rather be in a suit and, getting things done. And beyond that issue, overall, I think stress is just a huge, huge factor. I found what I loved early in life, and I grew up very business-minded. That changed the way I viewed a lot of things. I learned early the value of money and making your own revenue before I was even in high school. There's just so much that had to be done to end up where I am today. You see somebody who's successful, but that's just the finished product. You don't see the evolution it took to get there. I lost a lot of time and countless hours of sleep to get the things that had to be done. I'm stressed all the time about business. It can range from things like me not being able to get sleep at times because stuff has to be done. It's just something that's always constantly on your mind. It's a 24/7 commitment, I think. And it's all about learning and experiences and then moving on to the next thing. You can never settle, I think, in an entrepreneurial setting. You always have to be kind of improving your game. I once heard a quote that went along the lines of, work hard in silence. Let your success be your noise. And I like to live by that. As the day winds down and it become later in the day, it becomes more of my downtime. Kind of just a break from everything. I think the thing about entrepreneurship, and a lot of entrepreneurs will tell you, there's never really a set time. There's always more work to be done. Some people set boundaries, of course, of when they're out of the office and stuff like that. For me, work isn't really a set time done. It's just what I need to get done has to be done. In whatever time frame I can get that done. Sometimes I have due dates, sometimes I don't. But for me, taking a break and having that downtime is important to me. Whether it means physically getting out of the house sometimes to meet up with friends. Sometimes it's just simple as gaming. If I'm going to be in the house, just simple as, just interacting and learning new things. Maybe it's reading, watching YouTube videos. Just that disconnect from everything that's kind of going on in work, because it really is a stressful job. Like I said, it can be video games is one of my big outlets. It's talking with friends on TeamSpeak sometimes, just for a little bit. I don't know. I feel like he's garbage now.
I still think he's like.
I think he's good early because he's the only one that has that stun where you can't miss it.
Stop.
I play League.
Most importantly, this disconnect is just something that gets me away from work and something that I personally attach myself to so much to, because I'm so passionate about the work I do. It's hard sometimes to kind of get out of that mode. Now, despite me loving what I do, work is still work. At the end of the day, there's still, it is tasking. It is hard at times. It is difficult. It's sometimes stuff you don't want to do, but you have to do. At the end of the day, being an entrepreneur at its core to me means living out your dreams. To be an entrepreneur, to start your own business, to start whatever, means to take something that is an idea and bring it to life and work day in and day out to bring that thing, whatever it is, to action. There's people who have ideas, and there's people who put them to action. And I think as entrepreneurs, we create that opportunity. We fill that void. How many people in life get to say they do what they love for a living? So many people's dreams are destroyed when they label it as a dream, when they label it as something that's unobtainable. We work these jobs that we don't want to work. We do these things to get by, and we think these things are impossible. Only a select few, the talented, the smart, the athletic, whatever, can obtain these things and do these things. That you need to have, all these smarts to start your own business and to chase this thing and create this thing you love. When really all it creates is passion. If you are passionate about what you want to do and you're focused, I think you can obtain those things. So many people are going to tell you can't do it. So many people told me I couldn't do it. So many people told me it was just a hobby. It was just something that, I was just putting videos on the internet, and look where I am now. There's no better feeling than that. I still have a long ways to go, and many other things I'll fail at, and many other things that I'll start up, and I'll have some successes here and there. But that's what I really think the entrepreneurial spirit is about. Is about that drive, that hunger for the things that you want in life, and to say that sometimes it starts out as scratching your own itch, something that you want in life, and bringing that to the public. At the end, the money, the things, they all tend to come with that. That's what being an entrepreneur and entrepreneurship really means to me. My name is Adrian Cauguiran, and I am an entrepreneur.
Tech world in general. I have forums out there that are going to be released very soon. I'm going to have an email for it. I'm going to have a domain for it. I'm going to have a Ustream for it, and I'll be broadcasting live pretty much the whole time, every day except for when I go to school and when I sleep, and of course when I wake up and everything. But besides that, I'll be on most of the day. I'm getting a lot of new equipment, and a new webcam, new microphones, and all that stuff for the show. And a lot of new equipment. So basically, it's everything in technology. It's like a technology center, pretty much. It's on everything, vlogs and all that stuff. I'll promote it with those credits and not opening credits or intro every time, and I'll still be doing my regular shows. So I'll just probably do.